What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Ohio Sports Radio Show. It is Jared and Ian back again, ready to talk some Ohio sports with you. But this time, this episode will be strictly dedicated to our beloved Cincinnati Reds. This will be episode 24 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show and podcast number 2. So moving right along with the podcast here. But like I said, this episode with the start of baseball Monday, opening day Monday for the Reds. This episode will be dedicated to our beloved Cincinnati Reds. So let's talk some baseball. I know you're ready. You're a big baseball guy. I'm ready as well. So we typically start each show podcast out with our best and worst. Now we're going to do something a little different for this podcast and this episode. It's going to be our best to worst. We're going to rank the NL Central, how we think the NL Central will shake out at the end of the season. So I'll let you start first. Who do you have? I'll let you want to do all 5 of them?
Yeah, sure. Winning the NL Central, I got the Chicago Cubs. I think they're built to win it completely. Theo Epstein's done a great job building that team. You know, on paper, I think they're the best team in baseball. He's done a lot of work with that rotation. They've drafted. They've made great trades. And they've got a lot of great young talent on that team that's going to set them up for success for years to come. So I've got the Cubs winning the division. In second place, I've got the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, there's not much talk about the Cardinals in the offseason or spring training for that matter, which absolutely terrifies me. The Cardinals are a perennial World Series contender, and there's not much being said about them. They lost some key players from their team last season, and, you know, they're reloading, but they didn't do it through free agency. They did it through developing young players, and they've got some pretty good guys there in St. Louis and in that organization. Number 3, I've got the Pittsburgh Pirates, who I think are an excellent ball club. I look for the NL Central to actually put 3 teams into the playoffs. I think both teams are going to – both the second place Cardinals and the third place Pirates are going to be in the wild card game. But the Pirates are excellent. They've got a lot of youth on that team as well. Fourth place, I got the Milwaukee Brewers. And in fifth place, I got our Cincinnati Reds. And I'm not saying that we're the worst team in baseball, but we got a lot of question marks. You know, we're in a rebuilding rebuilding part of our franchise. And, you know, wins, losses don't matter right now. It's about development of our players, but I got our Reds finishing last in the NL Central.
Yeah, no shame in that game. Reds fans have to realize that this is a rebuilding year for us. Like we said, and we're happy to be there. I personally am. I know we've talked about it in previous shows, so I know you are as well. How I got the NL Central shaken out. Number 1, I have the Cubs winning the division. Like you said, top to bottom, on paper, they are one of the best teams in the MLB, and I agree with you there. So I have the Cubs winning the Central. Finishing second, I know you had the Cardinals. I have the Pirates finishing second. For me, they got great pitching, great players. McCutcheon's one of my favorite players in the league to watch. So I get the Pirates finishing second. Third, I have the Cardinals. They're always going to be in the mix. They're such a great franchise. I hate them, but they're a great franchise. Fourth, I got the Brewers. And fifth, I have the Reds finishing up, pulling up the rear in the Central. But no shame in that game, man. I mean, this is a rebuilding year for us. So that's our best to worst. That's how we have the NL Central shaken out. Now, for those of you who are familiar with our show, we do a segment called Top 5. So obviously this show being dedicated to nothing but Cincinnati Reds. We're going to do our top 5 best Reds players ever. Now, this list comes up quite a bit amongst Reds fans. Let's start with number 5. Who's your 5th best Reds player of all time?
Number 5 on my list is the only player on my list that I've actually got to watch in person or, from our era of Cincinnati Reds baseball. But number 5 on my list is shortstop Barry Larkin. Larkin was drafted by the Reds, played his entire career for the Cincinnati Reds. He was just one of those guys that you could pencil in every day at shortstop for the Reds all those years. Number 11, it's an iconic number in the city of Cincinnati. Larkin done a lot for this team.
Yeah, Larkin's a beast. Number 5 for me, I got Frank Robinson. Didn't play long with the Reds, but he's arguably one of the best Reds players of all time. He could arguably be number 1 in some people's eyes. Probably the dumbest trade the Reds ever made was trading him away to the Orioles. But I'm going to say Frank Robinson, number 5 for me. Let's hear number 4 for you.
Number 4, Tony Perez. I still like hearing this guy talk every time they bring him back for the Reds Hall of Fame when they do that every season in the summer. He gets up there and he'll talk, or anytime he's at a game and they interview him. Just love his accent. Baseball been very, very good to me. Tony Perez is just a class act in the Reds organization.
Yeah, I agree. I love Tony Perez. Number 4 for me is, you mentioned it with your 5th, Barry Larkin, Cincinnati kid. He's the man. I mean, we all grew up with him. Larkin, I think anyone who grew up in our time period, he's definitely one of our favorite players ever. Hall of Famer. He's in the Reds Ring of Honor. He's just a fantastic player. He was a great shortstop. The reason we didn't draft Derek Jeter, he was that good. And, look what Jeter's career became, but, no regrets there. Larkin was a monster. So Barry Larkin for me, number 4. Let's hear your number 3rd best player in Reds franchise history.
Second baseman, Joe Morgan from the Big Red Machine. That's where a lot of my players come from in this list. But Joe Morgan, I mean, just watching old videos of him hitting and at the plate, he just dominated. And he was a great fielder too. He was, a lot of people underestimated him because of his size, but just did absolutely wonderful things in the field when he was playing at second. But I think, the most iconic thing about him is the chicken wing at the batting stance. He would bat, the back shoulder coming down. So I know it's a lot of times I spent in the backyard with a wiffle ball bat, emulating him with the batting stance. So Joe Morgan comes in at number 3 for me.
Same for me. I think our top 3 are going to be the exact same. I think anyone who does a top 5 list with favorite Reds players are going to be the top same, or their top 3 is going to be the exact same. For me, though, Joe Morgan, you nailed it. He was a monster, man. So Joe Morgan comes in at number 3 for me as well. Number 2, I think we're in unison maybe with this one. Let's hear your number 2.
Number 2, the greatest catcher of all time, Johnny Bench. Johnny's got a lot of records still with the catching position. Just a fun guy to go back and watch. And that entire Big Red Machine team was fun to watch. I mean, there's no payroll in Major League Baseball right now that could put a team like that together with what salaries are nowadays. But Johnny Bench, and then like I said about the other guys, it's fun to hear him still talk about the good old days and about playing the game. So Johnny Bench comes in at number 2 on my list.
Yeah, Johnny Bench is fantastic. And what I like about Johnny Bench, I grew up as a catcher. My dad was a great catcher when he played ball when he was younger. So obviously he wanted me to grow up as a catcher. I later progressed to a pitcher. But Johnny Bench growing up, that's all I watched as my dad's favorite player and still is. And, I've met Johnny Bench before. He was super cool, super nice, great guy. His fit, watching him play, obviously we're too young to see him play when he played. But my gosh, dude, like trying to steal on that guy, you didn't dare steal second. He was fantastic. His arm strength, he'd throw you out from his knees. He was just great, man. I think he could fit like 5 baseballs in one hand, which is stupid. Everything about the guy, he could hit. He was just the best catcher of all time. There's no arguing that. So Johnny Bench comes in at number 2 for me. Number 1, we're going to agree with this one. Both my favorite player of all time for the Reds. But let's hear it, E. What's your number 1 best player in Reds franchise history?
If anybody wanted to take bets, you go ahead and bet on our number 1. It's going to be Peter Edward Rose. Pete was just, everything that you wanted to be in the game inside the lines, like you've said, Jared. In between the chalk, rather. Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle, the hit king. That record will never be broken. Just you couldn't want more from a ball player. He saw the ball better than anybody else that played the game, and his numbers show that. He leads the majors in hits. I'm not going to get into his off the field stuff that's kept him out of the Hall of Fame, but it's great seeing Pete integrated back into the game more and more, especially this past postseason where he was an analyst for Fox. I'm telling you, he's one of the most entertaining guys to listen to talking about the game. He offered a lot of great insight, and he was very entertaining, especially when he just would look out into the open with no look on his face at all. That was great. So many internet memes off that, and but at the end of the day, Pete Rose number 1 on my all-time Reds great list.
Yeah, Pete number one for me, no brainer. I think any Reds fan will probably put Pete number one. Like I've said many times on our show in the past, he is how you want your kid to play the game inside the lines. Outside off the field, not so much. But it is what it is. Pete, the object in baseball is to hit the ball, and he's the best at that. So Pete, for me, number one, no brainer. I'm so glad the Reds are inducting him into the Hall of Fame. They're going to put a statue of Pete out in front of the stadium. Hopefully it's one of him diving head first with his helmet coming off or something like that. That'd be so cool, man. I love hearing classic stories of Pete where they're going to walk him and he reaches out and hits it for a base hit and then tried to stretch it into a double. Like the cockiness, the arrogance of the guy when he talks, it's something that, yeah, people kind of frown upon it, but he backed it up with this play, man. I mean, he just running Ray Fosse over in the All-Star game and messing his shoulder up. Pete always says, like, they said I ruined his career, and he went on to have a great rest of his career, and I missed more time than he did from that. So just arrogance, cockiness, so great, such a great player. Pete is the man. Listen to him talk the history of baseball. He's fantastic. I hope baseball lets him back in. I'm glad the Reds are, and they're putting him in the Hall of Fame. But Pete Rose, number one for me on my top 5 best Reds ever. So moving on, let's talk. So opening day is Monday. Excited. The Reds take on the Phillies at 4:10 is opening pitch. This is the best time of year, especially in Reds country, man. I don't think anybody else does. Like, yeah, the Yankees, they got a winning teams. The Red Sox, there's historic teams in baseball, obviously, but nobody does opening day like Cincinnati Reds. It's electric down there, man. The city it's amazing. I think Southwest Ohio is just completely engulfed in the Reds on opening day. It's fantastic.
Everything shuts down. You and I talked about the other day, talking about going to opening days, and I've had the pleasure of going to one, and that was my senior year of high school in 2005, where they played the Mets, and I got to see Pedro Martinez pitch for the Mets, and we had great seats, and the Reds scored a couple runs early, and then Pedro got locked in, and started setting them down, and the Mets started scoring, and we get to the bottom of the ninth, and the Reds were down. I believe they were down 2 runs. Dunn comes up, hits a 2-run home run to tie it, and then newcomer Joe Randa, the third baseman, hits a walk-off home run off Braden Looper in the bottom of the ninth. It just put an exclamation point on that entire experience for opening day. And like you mentioned, nobody does it better. Baseball's first team, 1869. I wish they would get back to where Cincinnati had the first game.
Yeah, I was going to comment on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know I always do that, but it's an absolute crime that the Reds don't play baseball's first game. I mean, being the inaugural team of Major League Baseball, the first team ever. I mean, the Reds absolutely deserve it. And like you said, nobody does opening day like the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, that day for me, I don't care if you're a vegetarian or what, you're getting Skyline that day. Like, it's just everything about Cincinnati that day. For those of you who may not be from Ohio or familiar with it, Skyline chili, the legendary Cincinnati chili. But everything about that day, man, you're just so proud to be from this area. Proud to be a Reds fan, man. And I had the benefit of going down to the 2006 opening day game. That's the game where President Bush threw out the first pitch. They played the Cubs. It was freezing cold, rainy. There was helicopters, flyovers. It was electric, man. And it was freezing cold that day. I mean, my gosh, it was so cold. We got down there so early, just freezing our butts off. There were snipers on the roof and stuff ready to take people out. It was crazy. It was real weird, but it was fun, man. I mean, opening day is the funnest time in baseball in Cincinnati. It's amazing. The parade, everything about it is just so great. I for one cannot wait for the game on Monday. I can't wait. Should be a game the Reds have a chance of winning, actually, against the Phillies. Good opening series for them,
Oh yeah, no doubt. They've done actually better than what I thought in spring training. They finished up, I think, around 500, and the Phillies are one of those clubs that are in the exact same place the Reds are. They're all about rebuilding and getting young guys in there and playing and seeing what they've got. So I think Monday's game is definitely going to be a tight contest. And like you said, I think the Reds are very capable of winning, and it's a good opening series for this ball club.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said in spring training, we know we're in a rebuilding year. Most Reds fans are going to be upset that we're going to have a bad year, but you got to realize, man, like we got some pretty good prospects for the trades that we made in the offseason. Getting Alfredo Simon, that was a great move by Jocketty and the Reds to bring him in and get some veteran leadership in the clubhouse. So that it's a process. We have to trust the process. Jocketty's done it before, and I mean, this is his last year there. So I don't know, man. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a long year probably for the Reds, and I think probably by the All-Star break we'll probably be have a different tune to us as true fans. We're going to want to see the team do well, but it's just not going to be that this year. Just trust the process. Hopefully we get to see some guys come up in the minor leagues and get to make a name for himself. I know Winker, we all want to see him. I mean, cannot wait. So speaking of the roster, we did a thing. We're going to do our predicted 25-man roster for opening day. So do you want to go piece by piece, or do you want to go? What do you want to do? How do you want to do this?
You want to go just go pitchers and then go hitters?
Yeah, sure. Let's go our starting five. Who do you think is going to be the starting five? We know Iglesias is the starting pitcher, so who do you think the next four are? The starting five rotation.
So, like you mentioned, Iglesias has been tabbed as the opening day starter. Finnegan's been tabbed as game 2. Then there's a spot in game 3 that's unfilled right now. I think that's going to go to A.J. Morris. Morris had a great spring, 2-0, 1.54 ERA in 7 games. He started 2 of those games in just under 12 innings pitched, but I think he'll get game 3. Alfredo Simon slated to pitch game 4, and then they're hoping by game 5, DeSclafani will be back into it. So I think DeSclafani's the number 5, and then once Homer Bailey comes back from injury, which they're saying is May 1st, I think Bailey will slide right into A.J. Morris' spot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Iglesias is the opening day starter. Finnegan, day 2. For me, day 3 is I got Robert Stevenson over A.J. Morris, so I have Robert Stevenson in that spot. Simon, day 4, Alfredo Simon, day 4, and DeSclafani, hopefully day 5, and then like you said, Homer Bailey sliding in there. But for me, it'd be for Robert Stevenson. So let's move on to the bullpen. Who do you got coming out of the bullpen for the Reds this year, or the opening day?
Opening day, I think the bullpen's going to shape up with J.J. Hoover being your closer. I think your setup role is going to be split between 2 guys, righty and Jumbo Diaz, who throws absolute gas. And then I think the left side of, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over that. To face the left-handed hitters, you're going to bring in Tony Cingrani. Cingrani's had an absolutely awesome spring training. His ERA is under 1. He's got the fastball working. He's working on the changeup. He's actually developed a little bit of a curveball too. So Hoover, Cingrani, Jumbo Diaz, those are going to be your stalwarts in the bullpen. They just brought in Ross Ollendorf, veteran reliever out of Texas. He's going to make the club. I think Blake Wood, who is also a veteran in the game of baseball, hasn't really latched on anywhere in the majors, but they brought him in. He'll make the team. Caleb Cotham, who they got in the deal for Chapman from the Yankees, he'll make the team. And then I want to say Drew Hayes. He's had a great spring, but I think they're going to go with this other guy named Diane Diaz. So we're going to have 2 Diaz's out of the bullpen. This other Diaz guy has had a good spring, ERA under 2, and he's a reliever. So I think that's how it shapes out in the bullpen on opening day.
Yeah, for me, obviously, I got J.J. Hoover, Jumbo Diaz, Tony Cingrani as well. Then I got Caleb Cotham, Blake Wood, Ross Ollendorf, and A.J. Morris in the bullpen. So overall, not bad. We're pretty much pick for pick there, except for minus a couple. Let's move on to hitters. So we both had 12 pitchers. So that's what we're guessing. We're both going to guess 13 hitters as well. So let's start with opening day catcher. We thinking Devin Mesoraco?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mesoraco's back from injury. He's had a decent spring. and he's coming out of the crouch well, working behind the plate. So unless something crazy happens over the next few days, I'd say Devin Mesoraco, you go ahead and pencil him into opening day catcher.
Yeah, obviously at first base, we know Joey Votto will be there. Second base, Brandon Phillips. Those are easy. Third base, I have Eugenio Suarez. Is that what you're thinking?
Yep. Suarez takes over for Todd Frazier at third.
Okay. And shortstop, I think we're both going to go Zach Cozart as well. Left field, Scott Schiebler. He'll be platooning, obviously, with Adam Duvall. That's what I have. I mean, that is pretty apparent. I think you have that as well. Center field, Billy Hamilton. Right field, Jay Bruce. I think any Reds fan can pretty much fill out those infield players and outfielders as well. Let's go to the bench players. Who do you have? We already mentioned Adam Duvall as a platoon system. So who else do you have on the bench?
If it were up to me, I mean, if I'm making it out for money, I would say, go ahead and pencil in Billy Hamilton as your center fielder on opening day. If it were up to me, Billy Hamilton would be starting the year in AAA, and I would pencil Jose Peraza in at center field. He's had an absolutely wonderful spring. He's the guy we got in the Frazier deal, the 3-team deal that brought Peraza in from the Dodgers. He's shown that he can play anywhere, short, second, and center field. He's batted .305, and he's got an on-base percentage over 300 in the spring too. So, I mean, he's shown that he can hit major league pitching, but I think he's going to end up making the team. There's a lot of talk where, they're going to try and find him a spot in the lineup 3 to 4 days a week. I wish they'd go ahead and pencil him in at center field, but I got him coming off the bench. Ivan DeJesus Jr. coming off the bench. You mentioned Adam Duvall in the platoon situation. And then I've also got Jordan Pacheco. I would have had Jake Cave in there, but the Reds went ahead and placed him on waivers today. He was a Rule 5 guy from the Yankees. But Pacheco, he's a guy that hasn't caught on anywhere, but he had a nice spring. He hit over 300. He's got a lot of pop in his bat, and he offers pop off the bench. He can play first, he can play third, he can play either the corner outfield spots, and he can play catcher. And then rounding out the bench, I got a backup catcher, Tucker Barnhart.
Okay. For me, I have Jose Peraza, obviously, Tucker Barnhart as a backup catcher. I have Tyler Holt and Ramon Cabrera for me. I think both players had a pretty fair spring training. I think they're going to make the opening day roster. So that's our predicted 25-man roster. So maybe if there's some bets or anything like that, maybe throw a little money down on it. You may win something. So we came up with a pretty fun idea. We did our predicted 25-man roster of this team. We've been lifelong Reds fans, both of us have. So we thought of a fun little thing to do, our Dream Reds team from this millennium. So from the year 2000 on, our Dream Reds team at every position. We're going to do all the field players, a starting pitcher, 2 relievers, and a DH in case we're playing an AL team. So let's start at catcher, E. Who do you have starting at catcher on your Dream Reds team from this millennium?
Strategically, he's probably not a guy that people would pencil in at catcher, but I just love everything about this guy. He's an absolute gamer for life. Corky Miller. Corky knows so much about the game. He's been a mainstay in Cincinnati, and he's actually now working in the system as a manager or as a coach in the minors. And, they always say catchers make the best coaches, and Corky he emulates that because he's been around the game so long. The guys in the clubhouse, they can't say enough good things about Corky. He's been around forever. It was always fun watching him get the call up in the later months of the year and seeing him just go balls to the wall. And, he hustled. He did his best to hustle around those bases, but it took him about 3 days just to get the second base on a double.
Yeah, the best thing about Corky also, arguably one of the best mustaches in the game. Corky Miller's mustache was epic. So that's a good pick. I'm going strictly defense here. I'm not looking for much offense from this guy, but this guy's a gamer. He's playing every game of the year if he could. If he has the option, he's not resting at all. Broken shin, he's in the catcher's position. Knee savers, doesn't use them, baby. Jason LaRue, my boy Jason LaRue, black eyes. The guy would play without a face mask if he could, I'm pretty sure. He'd give you about a 162 batting average, strikeout. He'll go 0 for 3 a game, maybe 1 for 4. But LaRue, he was a gamer behind the plate defensively. Not much offensively. He was pretty terrible. But just the hustle out of that guy. I think I mean, he could take a beating back there. So I'm going to go with my boy Jason LaRue at catcher. Let's move on to first base. Who do you have? Who do you have at first base?
First base, Mr. Votto-matic, Joey Votto. He's the best hitter in baseball besides Miguel Cabrera, in my opinion. Joey's he's done so much for this team. He brought an MVP back to this team. The last MVP for the Reds was Barry Larkin back in '96, I believe. So Joey's definitely he's offered the Reds some high moments in his career, and he definitely got paid for them as well. But Joey Votto is my first baseman.
Same. I have Joey Votto, Grand Theft Auto at first base. He's the man, best eye in baseball, man. You have to put it in the zone to him, and that's scary because he can take you any which way. He can go opposite field on you. Votto's a machine, and I look forward to actually seeing him healthy this year, be able to play, and he looked amazing after the All-Star break last year. So hopefully he can pick up where he left off. Votto's at first base for me as well. Second base, who do you have?
There was a couple guys I wanted to pencil in here. I was always a big Todd Walker guy back in the early 2000s. I just loved seeing Todd Walker play the game. I thought he was an absolute gritty player. But I mean, you got to pencil in BP here. He's so much defensively. You don't have to worry if it's hit to that side of the infield. You know BP's getting to it. Just a fan favorite. Loves his swag. Loves coming out and seeing all the Debbies before the game, and he's just fun to watch, and always seeing that smile. It's an iconic smile in the Queen City.
Yeah, I completely agree. Got Brandon Phillips as my second baseman as well. I wanted to put Pokey Reese, and I realized the Reds have been very lucky with all the great second basemen they've had come through. But how can you look past Brandon Phillips? He's a Gold Glove machine. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen. I mean, it seems like every game he's making a dive and snap and flipping it behind his back for a double play. He's electric, man. Brandon Phillips as my second baseman as well. So let's move on. Third base. Who do you have as your third baseman on your dream team, your dream Reds team from this millennium?
I mean, we understood that he had to go in the trades because he was going to end up making too much money. But, you know, in a season that was completely just absolutely terrible for fans to watch, the Todd father, Todd Frazier, gave us something to cheer about last year, winning the home run derby in Cincinnati. So Todd Frazier comes in as my third baseman.
Same. We're same again. I got Todd Frazier as my third baseman as well, just because of how the guy he is, man. You go to a Reds game, and he's down there signing autographs until like damn near 1 minute before the opening pitch. He was a great guy in the community. I miss him in Cincinnati. Like you said, last year's home run derby was amazing. The MLB needed that. They needed a home run derby to recapture audiences in front of his home crowd. I mean, it was just so fun, man. He made you proud to be a Reds fan. So Todd Frazier is my third baseman as well. Let's move on to shortstop. I'm going to guess we probably have the same shortstop as well. Who do you have at shortstop on your dream Reds team from this millennium?
It could have been this millennium. It could have been of all time. I'm always going to take number 11, Barry Larkin. Larkin, like we mentioned in our top 5 list, he did so much for this team. He stayed with the team when other teams came calling with better offers and bigger offers with money. He's a Cincinnati lifer, and I love seeing him back a part of the personnel and helping our younger players today.
Yep. Same here. Shortstop Barry Larkin. Growing up, I think every one of us had the pinstripe number 11. So Larkin is like I said, he's one of my all-time favorite players. He's one of your all-time favorite. His stats, everything about him speaks for itself. He's still fantastic on as an announcer. Everything about Barry, he's just fantastic, man. So Barry is my shortstop as well. Let's move to the outfield. Let's start in left field. Who do you have in left field of your dream Reds team from this millennium?
Left field, one of my all-time favorite Reds, number 1 Dunner, Adam Dunn. Just big donkey. He was out there, and, it was either going to be a strikeout or a home run. But, man, when he made contact with that ball, I'm not sure many other people hit it further than he could. So Adam Dunn comes in, big number 44 in left field for me.
Same. I have Adam Dunn out in left field as well, man. I love Dunner. Like you said, Marty rode Adam Dunn, man. He rode him out of Cincinnati, Marty Brenneman for that matter. But Adam Dunn, man, like 1-2 more hits a game or a week. I mean, and he's batting 300. Adam Dunn was a beast, man. He had that country boy power. You put one in the zone. I mean, the Reds, anytime he was up to bat and the Reds were down, we had a runner on, you were glued to the TV because he was probably going to strike out. But if he didn't, that ball was going 500 feet away and over right field fence, man. I mean, remember the time he hit the ball out of the stadium? He hit it out of Great American Ballpark. I mean, he was amazing, dude. He wasn't amazing, but to us, he was amazing. I had an Adam Dunn jersey. I played catch without Adam Dunn. I got to a Reds game early. He was out in the outfield, and he threw me 2 baseballs back and forth, and he was awesome, man. He was a great Red, one of my favorite of all time. So Adam Dunn in left field for me. Yeah, go ahead.
To touch on that, what you said about Marty just riding him and always running him out of town, Marty wanted that hitting outfielder, and Marty wanted him to be a little more consistent with his hitting. And what you mentioned, you brought up the fact that, a couple more hits a week and, he's a 300 hitter. But the thing that Adam Dunn possessed, and you alluded to it, was every at-bat he could change the game with one swing.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Absolutely. It didn't matter. And, there's 7 other guys that are batting that are position players that can be your contact guys and that can be your 300 hitters. Adam Dunn had one job, and that was to, change the ball game just by hitting a home run. And he did that well in his time with Cincinnati. He was a home run hitter for us, and he did that job well.
Yeah, and you look at when he moved from Cincinnati, you look at the other fan bases that had Adam Dunn, they loved him. He's just one of those guys, man. He was awesome. Remember when he prank called Marty in between the rain delay? I mean, he was awesome, man. Adam Dunn was so great. He's just a character, just a fun-loving guy, just a guy that just, lucked into having natural power. And one swing of the bat, man, he's crushing the laces off that ball. So Adam Dunn, for me, he's one of my favorite Reds of all time, not just on this team. He's probably top 10 for me. So I'm going to put him in left field as well. Let's move to center field. Who do you have out in center field?
I think we got the same center fielder. He was our favorite player of all time watching him growing up. Wish his years in Cincinnati weren't cut short by injury. One of the saddest days of my fandom for Cincinnati was hearing the news that Ken Griffey Jr. had been traded to the Chicago White Sox for the Loch Ness Monster, a.k.a. Nick Massett, because you never got to see him pitch. But Ken Griffey Jr., I remember when he was traded to Cincinnati, I was so excited. I didn't care if we gave up the whole organization for him. The kid came back home where he grew up, and, he was just so fun to watch that first season. And even later on in his career with Cincinnati, even though he'd been injured so much, it was always fun to see that batting stance get into that batter's box, and you never knew what was going to happen. There was always flashes and light bulbs going off. And, if his career hadn't been shortened by injury, I think Griffey Jr. would have broken the home run record with the Reds.
Yeah, man, I agree. I think I can't put into words how much I love Ken Griffey Jr. Growing up, I wrote about it. I guess I can't put it into words, but it doesn't do it justice, man. Griffey, for me growing up, no athlete, not just baseball player. He was like Michael Jordan of baseball, man. No one emulated. Anytime you played wiffle ball or baseball, everyone did the shimmy. Everyone held the bat up high against their chest. Everyone was wearing wristbands and backwards hats. And you name it. Anything Griffey did, we did as kids. I mean, in our era, he's it, man. He is everyone's favorite player, no matter who he played for. I grew up. My dad would buy me – I've mentioned this on the show before, but my dad would buy me a fitted Reds hat, and you just felt so special whenever you had a fitted hat and you go play baseball with your friends in the backyard. But I remember, one of the few – I had a few teams other than the Reds, but I had Mariners hats, man. I had all of them when Griffey was there, and I rocked the Mariners hat with pride. So Ken Griffey Jr., when he came to Cincinnati, was a dream come true for Reds fans and for kids from our generation. You see your favorite player playing for your favorite team. He was amazing, man. It's sad his career got cut short, but there's no player that meant more to our generation than Ken Griffey Jr. There just isn't. You can't name one, and you're lying if you don't say it's Griffey Jr. So he's my center fielder as well. Let's move to right field. Who do you have playing right field of our Dream Reds team from this millennium?
I think this is where we're gonna stray from par for the course, Jared. I think we're going different routes here because this guy technically wasn't a right fielder; he was a left fielder. And for the simple fact of I'm just moving him over to right so he fits my list. It was a guy that only played one season here, and I really, really wish we would have kept him and held on to him because he went on to do a couple great things in the American League. But Josh Hamilton, I loved Josh Hamilton. He's another guy that injuries are just taking over his career. But I loved seeing him, and there wasn't anybody that got a bigger round of applause on his first opening day in Cincinnati than Josh Hamilton. They traded him for Edinson Volquez, who came in and pitched well for 1 year, but, Hamilton went on to be the AL MVP the following season. So right field for me would be Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, I love Josh Hamilton. He was one of my favorite Reds as well, and I knew you were going to do that because I know he's your boy. So I went different. I got Ryan Friel out in right field. Now, he's technically not a right fielder. He's pretty much every position. I remember they would, when Friel's in the height of Friel's popularity in Cincinnati, they would always do a little thing before the game on Reds Live when it would show his bag that he brought to the stadium that had every position glove in it, which was awesome. Friel was a gamer, man. He wasn't really that – he was a good, decent baseball player, but he was a better hustler and athlete. He made up for how small he was and everything by how hard he hustled. He was always diving for a ball. It's a routine fly. He's making a dive and catch. If it's a foul ball, he's diving into the stands. He's going to come out with a bloody face. That was how he played. And it was fun, man, to see a guy that would hit one back to the pitcher but would run it out to first base and maybe give you a head first slide into first. He was a wild card. Kind of sad. It was sad to hear of his demise and everything. But Friel was amazing, man. He was fun to watch in Cincinnati. So I have Ryan Friel out in right field for my Dream Reds team from this millennium. Let's move to starting pitcher. Who do you have? Who's your starting pitcher for this team?
There's only one that I can think of that'll do it justice, and that's Johnny Cueto. Cueto gave us everything we could have wanted, from his starting pitching position, and you knew you were going to get the absolute best from him every time he went out there. I'm glad to see him get a ring last year, and I'm even more excited to see him with the San Francisco Giants. But part of me really, really wishes that something could have been made to where he stayed in Cincinnati, because there's never going to be another Johnny Cueto in the Reds uniform.
Yeah, for him to come up through our organization as well, and just he was amazing, man. I have Cueto as well, but just to be different. I agree with everything you said about Cueto. He's the best pitcher we'll see in a Reds uniform probably in our generation. I mean, he really is statistically. It's a shame he didn't get a team around him that could put runs up for him and get him wins, because he could have 30 wins, man, in a season. He would give you 8 innings of 4-hit baseball, maybe. He was just phenomenal, man. Every time he went out on the mound. But to be different, I'm going to say Bronson Arroyo, just because he was consistent, solid. You know what you're getting with Bronson. He wouldn't overpower you, but, man, he had some control. He had great pitches. And I think he has a soft spot in a lot of Reds fans' hearts. I texted you when we thought that Bronson was going to have surgery again this year, and we were both kind of crushed by it, It turns out, luckily, it was just inflammation. He's going to be fine, thankfully. But I loved Bronson. I loved his time in Cincinnati. That rotation was amazing. So I know you're a big Bronson guy as well. But just to be different, I'm going to say Bronson. I did have Johnny Cueto penciled in there, though. Let's go relievers. We get 2 relievers. So who do you have coming out of the bullpen for your Dream Reds team from this millennium?
Number one shouldn't be a shock to anybody, especially if I'm trying to put a team out there that's going to win games. Probably one of the most dominant closers outside of Mariano Rivera of all time, Aroldis Chapman. Like we said about Frazier, the trade had to happen to get some of these guys out of town before they were due for big contracts. But you knew what you were getting with Aroldis, like you knew what you were getting from a lot of these guys that's on our list. He was going to come in. He was going to be electric. He was going to throw absolute gas. And more times than not, he was getting a save, and he was nailing the door down for a Reds win and getting us free pizza too. So Chapman's definitely a reliever of mine. And then another one is Scott Williamson Absolutely loved this guy. He was the 99 Rookie of the Year, and then after that, he got moved to the bullpen. Shared closer roles with Danny Graves for a season or two, and then the injury bug kind of bit him in the elbow, and he was never really the same. The Reds moved on from him, and he went up and finished a few years later with a couple other teams. But Scott Williamson was always fun to watch for me. He was just a guy that came out there, and he looked like he was always pissed off. He just had a pissed off look, and he pitched with aggression. And it was fun to watch because he would go up there. He didn't care who he was facing. He was going up there and saying, you know what, I'm going to give you my best stuff, and if you hit it, you can rename it, just like Ricky Vaughn said. So Scott Williamson's my other reliever.
I'm surprised you didn't have Cordero on your list, the man of blown saves. Oh, my God, how many blown saves did he have for the Reds? But anyways, yeah, I agree. Chapman's got to be on this list. Do you remember the first time you went and saw Chapman play live?
It was it was insane.
Yeah, because
you heard the threads coming undone on the baseball when he would throw it.
You could be in the top row of Great American Ballpark, and when he was out on the mound in between commercial break, warming up, and that first 100-mile-per-hour pitch crossed the plate, and it hit, my God, dude. I mean, did you ever sit behind the plate? Did you ever sit down in, like, the diamond seats behind the plate whenever he was pitching?
Not when Chapman was pitching.
Okay, so I got lucky. I got some diamond seats one time, and I got to see Chapman come in and close out a game. It's scary. I mean, that ball is moving, dude. I mean, luckily we weren't directly behind the plate. We were kind of off to the right a little bit, and you could kind of see the ball come in. Man, he moved that ball. Chapman was intimidating. Those guys were completely lost whenever they came up to try to face him. He was amazing. I loved his time as a Red, from everything about him, from, you know, the day we signed him, and we couldn't believe that we got this great closer. I'm glad they brought him out of the bullpen instead of putting him as a starter. He was great, man. I mean, the flames on the smokestacks, his entrance video, everything about him was great. I miss him as a Red, and I hope he does well in New York. But Chapman definitely is on that list for me. My second reliever, Mr. Scott Sullivan. And the only reason I'm bringing Scotty Sullivan is because he was a submarine pitcher, and that style of pitching is incredible. It's gone by the wayside. I loved him, man. He would come in. He wasn't overpowering. He wasn't amazing, but just like he always sticks out in my mind whenever I think of Reds relievers because of just the unique submarine style of pitching. So I'm going to say Scott Sullivan is one of my relievers. And last but not least, our final piece to the puzzle of our Dream Reds team from this millennium, the DH. I hate the DH position personally, but you know, it's just for the sake of the game here. I think we probably are going to have the same DH as well, but let's hear it. Who do you have at DH for your Dream Reds team from this millennium?
Since Joey Votto's playing first base for me, DH has got to be the mayor, Sean Casey. Him and his 5-minute antics in between pitches with his batting gloves and his helmet. Just Sean Casey was just one of those guys that you just loved watching. He chatted everybody up that came to first base. He was like, I mean, that's how he got the nickname, the mayor. You know, he was the friendliest guy in baseball. And, you know, I don't think you could find a baseball player that would have a bad thing to say about Casey. And Casey played the game with so much passion. You know, when the Reds would come from behind to win a game, he was the first one out there cheering and yelling and screaming and everything. And he's definitely, you know, he's a staple in Reds baseball history. So Sean Casey would be my DH.
I agree. The mayor, DH, he was amazing. Everything about him. I think he's one of the few players that got a hit to right field and got thrown out at first base when getting a hit to right field. He was amazing, man. He was so slow. He was slower than ice cold molasses. He was awesome though, man. I mean, his in between pitch ritual was bananas crazy. Helmet, gloves tighten, knock the dirt off your shoe, grip the bat some more, everything he did. It was amazing. I love Sean Casey. I loved him as a Red. He was a fun player to watch. He was a good contact hitter, man. I mean, people forget that about him. He was a good contact hitter, slow as hell. I mean, absolutely slow as hell. But he was fun, man. Sean Casey was awesome. And one thing I love about Sean Casey is he still loves that he was a Red. Whenever you talk to him, he absolutely loves it, man. And he announces some games for the Reds, and he's great in the booth for them. He was great at the home run derby. He caught one of Todd Frazier's balls at the home run derby, and he said he was just there as a fan. And they caught it. Do you remember that? Did you see him?
Oh, yeah.
That was great, man. Todd Frazier hit a ball, and then all of a sudden you see Sean Casey. You see Sean Casey catching that ball and going crazy in the crowd. He was great. Love Sean Casey, man. He's one of my favorite Reds. So he's my DH as well. So we were pretty much par for the course with our favorite, our dream team, Reds team from this millennium. But, it is what it is. Let's move on. We usually end our show with a bold prediction. This bold prediction, we're going to both do what we think the Reds' final record will be at the end of the season. E, how do you think the Reds are going to end up?
I'm still a Reds fan, Reds faithful, but this season is all about rebuilding and seeing what you have. The offense showed us in spring training that they're here to perform. And, Bruce had a great spring. We know he's not going to do that all season, but he had a great spring. Suarez picked up from where he left off last year. Phillips had a great spring. And Joey Votto, 22 for 50, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 440 batting average, and a 516 on-base percentage in the spring. You're getting from those guys. The big question mark with this Reds club is the young pitching. And with that bullpen, we're going to lose some games, and it's going to be more games than few. So I think they're going to lose triple-digit games. I think the Reds finish up at 62-100 this season and finish dead last in the NL Central. But Joey Votto will win the National League MVP award this year.
Wow, that's a bold prediction right there. Now, if you followed our show, we've talked about this in the past, and I gave a prediction what I thought the Reds were going to be, and I'm not going to waver from that. Even though they did have a pretty good spring training, I'm not going to waver from it. I said the Reds are going to finish 61-101. I too believe they're going to lose triple-digit games. It's going to be a rough year, but Reds fans, remember, we are in a rebuilding mode. I'm not confident enough to say that Joey Votto will win the NL MVP because Bryce Harper is also in the NL, but I would love to see it. I'm going to say the Reds finish 61-101, last place in the Central. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a rough year, but this is our team, man. We're going to love it regardless. But that's it. That's our show. Episode 24 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show and podcast number 2 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show. This one solely dedicated to our Cincinnati Reds, with opening day being right around the corner on Monday. I can't wait. Ian can't wait. But thank you guys for continuing to support us. If you like our videos on YouTube, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Now, we're going to continue to do the YouTube videos as well as the podcast. It's going to be simultaneous, so you don't have to worry about that. Speaking of the podcast, whenever they are up on iTunes, we will let you know via our Facebook and Twitter page. I'm sure I'll share it. Ian will. We will post a link as well once we get through the hoops with Apple and all that, and then we'll try to go to Android as well. But we will have the podcast up eventually, so look out for that. Keep an eye on our page as well. Once that is up, go ahead and give it a subscribe. It's simple. You'll have it on your phone at all times, and new episodes will come directly to your phone. You won't have to do anything about it, but it's pretty cool. So check out the podcast whenever that is available, and keep an eye on our Facebook page for that. Speaking of Facebook page, if you haven't already, give us a like on there, Ohio Sports Radio on Facebook. Follow us both on Twitter and Instagram at Ohio Sports Radio. And we are looking for new writers. So if you are interested in writing for Ohio Sports Radio about your favorite team, no matter who it is in Ohio, send us some work to ohiosportsradio@gmail.com. But that's it. That's our show. You got anything else to add?
Go Reds.
Absolutely. Go Red Legs. Hopefully we can grab a opening win, start the season off with a win on opening day, and hopefully it's a packed house. I know it will be, Cincinnati. I look forward to eating some Skyline chili, and hopefully our Red Legs can bring one home. That is the Ohio Sports Radio Show. We will see you next week for episode number 25 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show. Go Reds.
Go Reds.
See you guys. Thank you.